Welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Alex Duffler. I'm the Data and Learning Manager at Read by Fourth, and one of my roles here is to coordinate and manage a Lunch and Learn series. So this is our sixth Lunch and Learn, our fifth Lunch and Learn of the year of 2022, and we have several more coming up, which you will receive some additional information about after today's session. Our next one is coming up on November 18th, but again, stay tuned to your email inboxes, the Read by Fourth newsletters, and social media for more updates there. In a moment, I will pass the mic, so to speak, over to our presenters, but before I do that, I just wanted to give everyone a quick reminder about the intended format of these Lunch and Learns. We are really hoping to foster conversations rather than just sort of a Q&A. So you can think of it a little bit like a book club. We'll hear from our presenters and then we'll open it up for discussion between each other and between our presenters. And the hope is that this way we'll facilitate learning and help each other take action on what you learned today. One final programming note, as you heard a few minutes ago, or if you may not have if you just joined, but we are recording today's session, like with all of our other Lunch and Learns. And it will be posted on Read by Fourth's YouTube channel after the event. So I will also include a link to the recording in my post Lunch and Learn email later today. So you can look for that later today or possibly tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to upload the video. So with that, I'd like to briefly introduce our speakers. We're joined today by Judy Buchanan, Carol Roth, Leslie Spina, and Diane Waff. They are here today as part of the Philadelphia Writing Project, which is a teacher network of over 800 teacher consultants who work with teachers and other educators to explore literacy, writing, teaching, and learning in their classrooms and schools. And it's located at the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. I will actually turn it over now to Diane, and you may want to say a few more words than I have about yourselves and the Philadelphia Writing Project, but I will go ahead and turn it over to you all, and I'll stop sharing my screen so that, Carol, you can show your slides.
Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this Lunch and Learn session. And we are really excited to be able to share some of the work that we've been doing with young writers and using an approach to early writing called kid writing, which is a culturally responsive approach that invites children to write from their lived experience using drawing, invented spelling, and lots of conversation to increase language development and also to increase their interest in writing. And we're doubly pleased today to have Leslie Spina joining us as the director of Kinder Academy. And you'll learn a little bit more about Kinder and the work that we're doing there as we proceed. Carol, will you go to the next slide, please? So just to give you a little history or background of the work that we've been doing with young writers, from 2018 to 2021, we were supporting K-1 students in 5 elementary schools in the school district of Philadelphia and providing consistent practice with early writing. We were able to demonstrate that by integrating reading and writing, that students not only advance as writers, also as readers. And we're going to provide you with a chapter from the handbook on effective writing instruction that was based on an evaluation study of our work. So that'll be shared with you at the end of this session. We're also currently doing work in 2 pre-K centers, 5 sites. One of those centers happens to be led by Leslie Spina. We're also using this approach, this culturally responsive approach to writing through journal writing with our Penn GSE Netter Summer School. and also with kindergarten students at Lee, which is Lee Elementary School, which is one of our Penn partner schools. But all of this is a way to advance emergent writing. And sort of part of that, the heart of this process too, is connecting home and school in supporting these young writers. So Carol, will you go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Judy.
Thanks, Diane. So as part of what we did in this most recent work with our 4-year-olds is to really look closely at their writing. And we're going to invite you to join us today to slow down. This is hard to do in our busy lives, but we're going to look at some pieces of children's work, and we're going to do some description. And I know you all know this is not evaluation, but it's really hard in our busy lives to make that distinction. Another article we'll share with you afterwards is specifically about emergent writing. And this is a quote from, and it's also part of the work that's published on the NAEYC website. You again probably know this, that young children really begin to imitate the act of writing. But we've been downplaying that lately in lots of environments. So it's really important to bring that back up to your attention. And we're going to talk about stages of emergent writing in this next bit of the slideshow. So go ahead, Carol. The article that we mentioned is hot linked and also be available afterwards, as Alex said. This really goes into depth and with, again, some additional research resources. So emergent writing has stages or phases, and we're going to invite you to help us as we describe them. So when you look at this, I'd like people just to add in a comment, just describe what you see. Just tell us what you see in this drawing. Somebody want to unmute and just share?
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
I see an outside day. I see the sun. I see leaves on the tree and grass on the ground, and a very excited person. I think it's a child frolicking in a park. That's what I see. I'm inferring a little.
Thank you. That's a lot of description and a little bit of inferring. So that's terrific. Thank you. So as you know, young children draw, and they draw all the time. And all of these drawings come from the 2 centers we're working with. And but the drawing, it often represents a story that you wouldn't know what it is unless you talk to the child. And of course, drawing continues. Even though we're going to look at emergent writing, we just want to make the point that drawing continues, so that it isn't that you stop drawing and start writing. Drawing continues. We can go to the next slide. And in this emergent writing description, drawing, after just drawing, often comes learning to write your name on your drawing. And I think it's pretty obvious there. You can see the child did that. As many adults have looked at this drawing, we really think Winnie is a fashion designer, that is so elaborate. Just an amazing drawing for a 4-year-old. But note in terms of writing that she's written her name. And so this is still in the emergent writing stages, stage 1, but now with some specific writing. Okay, now let's, if someone else could jump in with a description of what you notice on this page.
I will. Different kids playing ball.
Okay, thanks. And what about the lines you see? Can you say anything about them?
The arms of the different children. And the black lines is maybe motion.
Thanks.
Energy.
Yeah, great. And if you look at lots and lots of these drawings, so we've looked at over 500. One of the things you begin to see is that wavy line is the beginning of using your hand to try to write. And we often miss that when we're not hanging out with 4-year-olds because it's not recognizable. But if you spend time with 4-year-olds, you see that they are beginning, and 3-year-olds, they're beginning to try to write like we do. And these scribbles are the beginning of writing. Okay, we've got some more here. There's something new though. It's sort of like a hidden drawing. Can anyone see something else in this drawing?
There are some letters in this one.
Great. Can you say one you see?
There's an R in the bottom right-hand corner.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, if you were looking quickly, you could easily miss it, but there's the beginning of writing here and these few recognizable forms. And also some more of that wavy line. Let's keep going. Okay. You now can probably use some of what you've just seen to add to this description. For those of you who don't, the child's name is there in the center. You might not recognize it since you might think if it's a random string of letters, but it's actually the child's name. And again, a lot more scribbling and some stick figures, a very beautiful heart, which we often see in children's work. And this is now stage 3, lots of progressions here where you see the line being repeated, the curvy line being repeated. Okay, a different way of looking and this is really the beginning of the next stage. What someone else want to say what they notice here?
They use their name, their letters to do the drawing. Their names, yeah.
Yeah. Very different, lots of letter formation there. And again, we're not completely clear what's there, but we do see some letters. You can see the A, the W, a reversed S, capital D. And the child does appear to be going from left to right, although it's an odd shaped piece of paper, so we're not completely clear. But it's just one of these things that we begin to really look for all these clues on emergent writing. It's a little bit like being a detective when you're not used to hanging out with 3- and 4-year-olds. Okay, now we're taking a big leap here. What do we notice?
Labeling. They're starting to label.
Great. And in the drawing, people who've looked at this over time are particularly note the roots underground, and that there's both the drawing above ground and below ground, as well as some actual letters placed on the page. And some real, this is one of these things where adults want to talk about whether that at the top of the page says mom, or it's letters that are almost spelling mom, but not quite. So we're being conservative in our description here, and we know it's an M and an I, but it's written together like a word. So let's go on to the next one. Okay, now more of us are comfortable with looking at drawings like this because we're more used to being able to see things. And this is stage 5. These are still 4-year-olds, just to remind us all. And the adult at the Writing Center wrote in the bottom left corner what the child said, but the child did all that work first. Anybody want to say anything? Did you notice? Okay, Carol, you can give us. So this is a really important stage because there are letter strings. And although only the I is completely both a letter and a word, they are written left to right very clearly. with the magic marker. And the child is very clear about what she is thinking about when she's able to tell the adult, I am a princess. And here we have really the beginning of what stage 6 is called transitional writing. Again, easier for us to decode. You see clearly some things. Anybody want to say what they notice in the child's writing as opposed to what the adult wrote underneath?
There's space.
Space, yeah. So the child has written and clearly thought about what the drawing was and actually wrote a sentence which describes it. Again, there's space. And the initial sound is there for the part of the drawing, Christmas tree.
Mhm. Rainbow.
Great. So, and of course, not all drawings are fancy. This is a simple one, but very clear. You know, children love to draw rainbows, but some very sophisticated writing. It's a little bit faint, but spend some time looking at the letters, and then what the adult has written underneath will help you translate. But look at the letters and look at how they relate to what the child is saying.
They wrote how they heard it, and they put the letters of the sounds that they heard to spell the word, how
Yes.
they hear it, how kids perceive their letters or the word. That's how they put it. So
Exactly. And you can really see how much they're hearing in this particular writing. So Carol, you want to put the cursor, if you can, on the letters. So rainbow, there's the R, rainbow.
mhm.
And you and as you probably know, vowels often come after consonants in children's ability to hear and write them. But the long vowel bow is there. Has, that S definitely sounds like a Z. Colors. Again, hearing a good part of the words. And so this is when Diane mentioned earlier about invented or phonetic spelling. That's what we're working with here as children are beginning to write their own stories with the sounds they hear. Now we have another great one. Got to spend a little time looking at the picture before we jump into what it says.
Batman and Batman, I don't know.
Yeah.
Batman and bad guys. I don't know, Batman.
There you go. That's great. Yes. So again, and the adult wrote underneath bad guys under the very ending of that writing. But the child was able to both draw a pretty elaborate drawing. And I think I'm less familiar with all the Marvel bad guys these days, but that one with the lines coming out, those sharp things, and then Batman. And then Batman was written all together in a word. And then Iron Man is what we decoded after we listened a little bit more. And then bad guys, and the child didn't quite finish, left off guys, but bad guys was what that last word, the beginning of bad. So again, a very elaborate drawing and story. And then with capital letters to tell it. And then here's another. And as you look at this, we're more comfortable. We have to do less detective work. Flowers, butterflies. What do you notice about the writing? So the child's writing is, of course, the big capital letters, and the adult's is next to it. with the capital and lowercase letters. But in, go ahead.
The letters are much easier to identify this time.
Yes, and you know, almost a perfect line without, in a straight line without a line on the paper. And only the S is reversed. Go ahead, Carol. Yeah. And the pictures, of course, are very colorful, and the adult, of course, wrote the words flowers and butterflies. And this is, the date is on the bottom, so you know this is a child in the spring. We see lots of flowers and butterflies in our drawings in the springtime. This is stage 9, and the sort of final stage of emergent writing. Of course, writing goes on to develop. And this is a child who just turned 5. And so what do you notice in this?
They made a complete sentence.
Yes. What else?
And the letters are lowercase. The beginning is uppercase. The other ones are lowercase. And they have the punctuation behind pool.
I know the spelling's correct.
Yes, all the spellings is correct. Yep.
Yes. And of course, we weren't there to see exactly how the child did this, so we don't know if anything was on the walls around the room. But we do know that this is the beginning of conventional spelling. And the picture is a great picture. It matches the text. Again, the child has written very clearly, even without lines on the page. And clearly knows to go from left to right. Sentence begins with a capital I. And then it's all lowercase letters. And there's a period, as you mentioned. And we just don't know whether those are sight words the child has memorized, whether it's something the child's written many times. You know, we're just looking at these individual pieces of student work, but those would be things that adults that are working with the child would know and would begin to foster and develop further.
Thank you, Judy. References?
Right, so these references and resources will be available. Again, when Alex posts this, and then of course it's on the Zoom, but we highly recommend diving into this, thinking more about emergent writing as part of children's literacy development.
And now we want to talk a little bit about how do we help some of this development along? The two key words are opportunity and support. So my top row of pictures on this slide indicates the opportunity. In the top left-hand corner, you see the kinds of supplies that foster this drawing and writing, a journal book, and a journal can be as simple as pieces of paper stapled together, plain pieces of white paper stapled together, or these little copybook-like things, preferably unlined for young children, that you can purchase in Target or the dollar store. Something to draw with, markers, crayons, colored pencils. Children love using them all. And finally, pencils. The pencils I have indicated here are thick pencils. So sometimes as we saw in the writing that Judy was describing, some children wrote with the marker because it's easier to hold. And a nice transition to using a pencil are these very, very thick pencils that I was able to get even from Amazon or Staples. So our first step in providing opportunities is letting children draw what they want to draw. And I think we're making it very clear that drawing really is the beginning of writing. It's where you put your ideas down. It's how you organize your thoughts. So drawing is a critical piece to helping support children. But along with this drawing comes a lot of conversation. You want the children to talk about what they're drawing, to talk among themselves. So this is not a quiet time. If you're working with a small group, they're talking with their little buddies at the tables, or they're talking with an adult that might be there helping them. I can just give the example of yesterday I was working with a fellow who had drawn a dinosaur. And so we keep talking about the picture, what's happening here, what's this about over here. And finally I said, well, what does the dinosaur eat? And he said, well, the leaves from the trees. I said, well, maybe we better put that in the picture. And he was happy to comply and put his tree with leaves in the picture. And if you can easily see that that is adding a detail. So when this child gets to 3rd and 4th grade and the teacher writes on his paper, add more details to that paragraph, you can see that it actually starts with 4 and 5-year-olds as they are adding details to their story or their information in the drawing. Now, my bottom row of pictures is really focusing in on the kind of support we do, because after the child has drawn the picture, we ask the child to begin writing. As I said, sometimes they're holding a marker to do it. I now like to give them the pencil to distinguish the drawing from the writing. And we ask them what we're going to say about the picture. And obviously, if it's a very young child, it's probably going to be 1 word or 2 words or a phrase. And then we go word by word, stretching out sounds in the words by emphasizing those, really strong initial consonant sounds. And as Judy pointed out, sometimes those long vowel sounds like in rainbow are easy to hear. And the child here is able to apply everything that he's been learning in his phonemic awareness and phonics instruction that he's receiving in preschool or kindergarten or 1st grade. And this is truly the application of the phonics right here. We don't literally use a rubber band, but I put that picture there to indicate the stretching out of the sounds. So in a word like monster, which everybody is drawing at this time of year in preschool, we would say the word monster. Now, I don't isolate the sound of the M. I just emphasize it, make it a little louder, and maybe elongate it. And I say, what sound do you hear? And very often the child is able to hear the sound because of the phonics instruction that's happening in the classroom or his knowledge of the world, especially if he's a frequent visitor to McDonald's, he might know that M. But very often the children will say, but I don't know how to make it. I don't know how to write M. And we use an alphabet chart right next to them to help by pointing out the letter. And sometimes even a little whiteboard with a dry erase board with a marker so that the child can practice writing the letter even before he puts it on the paper. The next part of this support is the adult underwriting. And we saw that in some of the samples. After the child has done the writing, the adult then writes in conventional spelling, conventional capital letters, punctuation, so that the child sees in standard English what his or her writing looks like. And the final step is reading back what was written. So what the adult then points to the word or words, reads it, and then asks the child to do the pointing to the word or words and read it back. So the child really gets the sense over and over again that writing is essentially talk written down. Reading is essentially talk written down. So what we have written, we can read. And lo and behold, the connection between reading and writing. And I thought it might be useful to just look at one young writer's progress. This is Jana's journal from last year, just to see how it goes from beginning to end. And again, I picked Jana as an example, and she wasn't the strongest little writer in the room, but I think you're going to be amazed at the progress. So as you can see, this was writing that Jana did at the end of October. So she's already been in school in pre-K, 4 years old, for 2 months. And she said, I am a star student. Pretty impressive drawing that she made. And you can see down here, when we tried to sound out the word in October, she was able to come up with that I and A. And maybe these are the beginnings of S's down here. In December, the picture, as you see, gets much more sophisticated. And she chose, and a lot of kids go back and forth. Sometimes they want to write, sometimes they don't want to write. And she allowed the teacher to put in she dictated to the teacher in these pictures. Here again, this is December 12/15. She is attempting to write Miss Robin, the name of her teacher. And we see a big jump here in January, where, because she's been practicing writing her name over and over again, she is putting her name into her sentence. And you can see Jana right here she's got the PL for playing and the S for snow. Jana is playing in the snow. And here she is in February, where she decided to draw a picture of her assistant teacher and the letters that she puts for Miss Amira. Big difference. We see a lot of progress now in March. We're looking at March 16th over here. And I hope you all recognize Pete the cat, because he's huge among the pre-K set. And as you see that Jana wrote Pete with PT. And then she didn't know anyhow to write the, because that's an impossible word to sound out for little ones. So I encouraged her to just use a line to take up the space for that word. Then you see cat, you see plays, and that could be a reversed S or a Z-like form, but because plays, that sounds like a Z, doesn't it? In the magic lines again, all those lines again, snow. And you know how C's and S's can be very, very confusing. So she put C for snow, and we accept anything that the child does. There's no criticism. The way that we are modeling for the child is with the adult underwriting after they've made their try. And here she is at the end of March, writing beehive, even though it's right to left instead of left to right. Look at all the sounds that she was able to hear in beehive. And here is April, end of April, Pete the cat again. And I want you to watch as indicating Pete is, you see that Z for is, walking. She heard 3 sounds in walking. And here is red shoes. Pretty amazing, isn't it? And here in May, she's talking about my beautiful dress for Blue Day. Again, extra sophistication in the drawing and lots of great consonant sounds. Well, we're going to thank you for your attention, but now we're going to go back to stop sharing our screen and sort of ask for questions or comments. And we'd like Leslie to pipe in also now. Leslie, director of one of our pre-K centers, about what she's been noticing at Kinder Academy.
This program has been really great for my teachers. They love being a part of the program, and we have other teachers who are asking to get into the program. It's given us the opportunity to work with both the teacher and the student to create new norms that include slowing down, like you've heard several times today. But that's to notice the work and the development. And also it gives us time to encourage this young writer, right? They're getting this one-on-one praise. They're getting the opportunity for their work to be showcased in a way that's not so typical in early childhood. It changes the relationship between the child and the adults in the room, but also it creates this bonding experience, but also builds a love of learning, especially a love of learning for writing. This is not drudgery for the children. It's not this time to sit down and write in journals. It's not like that. We have to encourage children to take turns so that everyone gets a turn to do journal writing. And this is a dramatic shift. We also see that after just 1 year of doing this with teachers, they have these tools that they keep forever and they can share with others. And the interventions going forward cost us so very little because the teachers have made this part of the culture, just like circle time or outside play, journal writing, storytelling, that whole literacy component is really just part of what they do in their classrooms and a normal expectation. So we've really seen a change in children just being able to write their first and maybe their last name and knowing some beginning sounds when they were leaving here and going to kindergarten, to this whole different level where literacy is everywhere for children. And we really feel like this is such a huge head start, and it remained developmentally appropriate all the time. Our programs are based in play. So this was not about sitting down, doing homework, holding the pencil perfectly and correcting every misspelling. That's not this program. So it has been really exceptional for us.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question now or pipe up with a comment?
I noticed that Julie has a question. She wrote in the chat, as we encourage children to express themselves, how should we handle the adult that doesn't appreciate all the small steps it takes to learn?
It's an educational process, obviously. It's really important. And I think it's often critical to remind parents or teachers how it was when their child was first learning how to speak and how to walk. We praised every little attempt and we modeled the correct way. This development in writing is exactly the same way. You didn't criticize, your child because they said baba for cookie, did you? You just repeated, oh, you want a cookie? So I think that might be, Julie, one of the ways that you say this is real development. And that scribbling on the wall at 2 years old is the beginning of writing, and we have to be very accepting of that.
I'd like to add something. I had some concerns about journals, and what we've found is that the journals support being able to see the development. And so we use journals where we use folders so we can put unlined paper in, and then after a couple months, take that out and refill it. And then we can see the writing journey that the children have been on. And the teachers and the families really understand it. It's very clear when we can see just a month ago how different that beginning writing was from today. And this has been very valuable and very inexpensive to be able to do in a classroom. So it's been a very good resource for us.
And I do see the next question about using prompts. We do not use prompts for journal writing. That's a really good question. Because we think it's important for the child to draw what they want to write about. When you think about yourself back in school and the teacher said, okay, it's Leprechaun Day, you're going to draw what's at the end of the rainbow. I mean, maybe you didn't want to draw about the gold at the end of the rainbow. In this way, when we give children choice, it becomes more of a joyful activity. There are children who know a lot about, as I mentioned, dinosaurs, or they know a lot about snakes, or they know a lot, and they want to express that. They want to put that down. They also are dying to draw about their families and their experiences that they had. And that should be the meat of writing. I do want to say that very often, if a teacher has read a particular children's literature book in the classroom, that is often a jumping off point for children who don't have any particular ideas of what they want to write in their journal. But we do not find that that is a problem. They do not need a prompt. They are dying to write about whatever, sharks, you name it. Thanks for the question.
I wanted to add, I was smiling when I saw that Jana had done a beehive, because I collected a beehive from my house that was about 18 inches long, and that we brought it into the classroom after 6 months of making sure it was no longer live. And we bought books and puzzles and all kinds of things to go with it. And we let the children deconstruct the beehive, and then they built them from, they did a paper mache thing. And so it was interesting to me that that was what she was writing about, because I was sure that that was the time period that Miss Robin was doing that beehive. So it's what's interesting to them showed up and continues to show up in their journals.
Thank you.
And looking at all of that, we looked at, we collected a lot of student work in this project, and the adults read and looked at them all to find those examples that we shared with you on the slides. And there was no end to interesting things that children were drawing and writing and telling about.
Any other comments?
Hi, this is Kimberly, and I just wanted to make a comment. First, thank you for having this, hosting this. I'm very familiar with this from my own research, and I think it's terrific. I just wanted to make one recommendation in reference to the writing instrument. The Japanese style pencils for children, I find, are really wonderful. They're short, they're fat, and they're triangular, and they're easier for the kids to grip. And I think you can find those now on Amazon. So that would be my only recommendation. And they also have them in colors too. They have them in colors now.
Thank you so much. I'm going to look it up. The other thing that I have seen some of our pre-K teachers using are these pencil grips, that they are helpful for beginning writers also.
I'm curious if there's anyone in the room that is currently using writing in their interactions or their programming now, and what that might look like, if anyone's willing to share.
I mean, I would love to. My name is Roanna. I run a creative writing education nonprofit called Cosmic Writers. And so writing is really, really central to our approach to literacy, of course. And I also just want to say I really appreciated all of this, because most of our work is with K through 12. We don't do so much work with the younger groups, but we would like to get into doing some pre-writing work with them. But what we have found is that, of course, writing is a really exciting channel for literacy, and that the reason why it works so well is because it's really empowering to kids who don't have a lot of control over, most of what's going on in their lives, because when you're 5 or 6 years old, you don't get to control pretty much anything, but you can get to control the things that are coming out of your marker. And so in a lot of ways, what we have found is that giving kids the tools to create their own worlds, especially leaning into kids' imagination, encouraging them to engage with fantasy and sci-fi, that is a that is a very natural path for a lot of kids to end up engaging with literacy, because it takes what they're already doing, inventing worlds, telling stories, and gives them a mechanism that feels valid to them. And that is often what gets them excited about reading as well, because often they see writing as the boring thing that they have to do in school with the essays and the standardized tests. They don't make the connection that somebody has to write the books that they read. And so making it clear to them that they have the power to do that has been a really, really key piece for engagement for us. And that that in addition to all the wonderful, important developmental work that it's doing to engage kids with writing, that ultimately what we found the most powerful thing that writing can do is in terms of creating really positive connotations around words and power for children.
Couldn't have said it better. Rowana, we're putting you on our next presentation. That was fabulous. Thank you so much for those comments. And what you made me think of was something I neglected to mention when you said you work with K to 12. We are calling this beginning writing, and beginning writing can happen for different children at different stages. I kept saying pre-K, K1, because that's been our experience. However, a child with special needs, or a child whose language is not English, whose first language is not English, this kind of method for getting started with reading, phonics, writing is perfect. Yeah.
And we have collected student work from kindergarten and first graders too, and continued looking at the description of the writing as it develops. So this developmental process doesn't end at the end of pre-K. It really goes on until about the middle of second grade. We would get to what we would all call conventional writing, with the recognition that spelling continues to develop throughout one's life, and we don't expect second graders to know how to spell what high school seniors do. But there's still a developmental process in the early grades in school as well.
I'll just add that the writing process certainly contributes to language development and also just the social nature of learning. And I'll share that at our Reading Promise Week at Hamilton Elementary School, we borrowed from the Read by 4, We Write Your World, You Read Your World. So we had a long white piece of paper laid across a really lengthy table, and we wrote, write your world, read your world. These students came together, second and third graders, using stickers, created a city, created outer space. They created a city in their drawing, and then various members of the class wrote the story, and they kept adding storylines to the picture that was there. So they were contributing to the meaning of the story together, collectively, having conversation, creating beautiful images of drones and just incredible ideas that they have taken from stories that they've read, movies that they've seen. But it was just tremendous excitement with the children each adding to the story and learning from each other. So writing really is a way for children to share their ideas, to make those ideas visible to other people, and contributes to reading development, but also sense making.
Thank you.
I'm also curious if, I know we've got a lot of folks in the room from, I think, the Read by Fourth Partner Network. And I'm curious if there are any questions that you might have for each other as practitioners in this field, in your day-to-day work, or like what else you might like to share around this topic. What are you seeing in your own work? And it can be as small as Kimberly's suggestion earlier about the Japanese style pencils. I think that was a great idea.
So it's not in my work, but a lot of this resonated. I have nieces and nephews ranging from 6 to one's actually supposed to be born today, so I guess 0. But the underwriting and the conversing on it and like helping with the stretching out sounds all like really resonated with me. It's just like really simple, practical, effective things that I could be doing to support them in what they're doing. So just really appreciated those pointers.
Thanks, Clinton. And I think because it's really so basic and so easy, this is something that can be done with parents at home, in addition to in school. Mm-hmm.
Well, I see Diane Mills here, but at our Reading Promise Week at Hamilton, Diane had a story hour group. I don't know what the story you were reading that connected with crowns. And then the students left her story hour and then went to the crowns and wrote sentences. They were adding ing words, creating images. There was such a nice flow between the reading and writing. Diane, do you want to say a little bit about the book that you were sharing with the students?
Well, we shared 2 books. We shared The Crown is Yours. It basically dealt with a guy who was diagnosed with dyslexia at 14. So how they seen learning is different. Then we did Grandmom's Garden by Chelsea Clinton. We did that book as well. So the kids got a chance to pick what book that they wanted to do. Some picked The Crown is Yours and some of them picked The Garden. So most of them picked The Crown is Yours. And from reading that, they became empowered. Some of them read the book to me, or we did responsive reading, or I let them read a page and then I'll take a page. So we kind of did things a little differently, how they wanted to do it. So it could be fun for them. And we did use a lot of the things that you mentioned today. We just didn't draw. That was Diane's part that she did. But the kids, what I found, the kids became empowered from it. Their confidence was a build. It was a build of their confidence after that, and seeing the 2 came together. So they were more confident. And when they put their crowns on, they really became confident because they realized that the crown is theirs and that they had control over the things that they can do, what they thought they couldn't do.
Thanks, Diane.
Yeah. And that
You're
goes back
welcome.
to that goes back to what Rowana was talking about, having a whole sense of control. I think that's important for any human being. And, when it's writing time, you control the pencil and the crayon. Yeah.
I also think having the journals adds to that, because each child has their own journal and they have complete control of that journal. No one else is allowed to do anything. And even the teachers don't write in it except when the child is telling them what they're saying. So it's one of the few things that is their personal property. So that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And they can go back. One of the things we've seen with the older children is that they go back and remember that they got help with something that they didn't know how to do, and they can go back in their journal and see that word that was written. So they use it as a tool for their own learning. It's not just today's drawing and then never looking back. They can see their own development in the same way Carol showed us one student's because it's their book, it's their journal.
One of the valuable things that you didn't talk about is there's an alphabet chart that has the photos of that correspond to each letter are so familiar to the children that it really has helped. And we have them in multiple places in the classrooms. We laminated them because things happen. And last year, when we were sometimes closed because of COVID, we sent them home with the children. And I really think that this was a very valuable tool, because those were the ways children were linking letters with sounds.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And what we found that some of the teachers have now are the environmental print kinds of alphabet charts too. I made that reference to McDonald's. They knew immediately that it was M because of McDonald's. And certainly Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know what they call it now. It's not Dunkin' Donuts, but it's Dunkin', just Dunkin'. They know the D from Dunkin'. And there are so many things out there that really assist with that, that consonant knowledge. Thanks for saying that, Leslie. I'm gonna try to find.
I have a quick question that's like a little bit of a different kind of question, which is just Philip's been around for decades. And what have you all seen in terms of how it's been embraced? Is there like an ebb and flow? Is it like how is this being implemented in classrooms in the city, and how has that been over time?
So that's a big question.
We can talk
There
about it later too. We can talk offline. I'm just curious about like what you all are seeing as, educational pedagogy changes over time. And
So there's a national writing project that Philip is one of 175 sites of. And so just across the country, just so everyone knows, there's this work going on in local communities. And writing has always been an uphill battle compared to reading. It's such that many people, not necessarily anyone on this call, but many people believe that reading precedes writing. And it's a bit of a heavy lift to help people re-see that writing in the way we just described today is there from the very beginning. And that's perplexing, because if you look at young children, and if you have them in your families or had your own, or you work with your friends, you see that writing right away. You see the drawing. No one has not seen children drawing, but somehow it's gotten segmented off from learning to read. And that's a very strong belief. So on one level, it's still a struggle. On another level, there's been an explosion of wonderful writing, and the writing tools, because we live in the digital age now, and the digital age is writing based. In some ways, I think maybe 50 years from now, no one will be asking that question, because everybody will be so engaged in online work all the time, and they just won't be able to imagine a time when we didn't see how reading and writing were connected. But we're still not there, and certainly the pandemic showed us both wonderful opportunities and the struggle at the same time. We did see with our youngest writers and the teachers who were involved with kid writing at the 5 schools we were working with, they used the online tools, and the kids did kid writing. And they used clip art, they used other things, and they were actually able, because they were already engaged in the process, they were able to use the online tools for writing in a way that I don't think kids who hadn't had that experience may not have been comfortable in doing. And we have some great examples of that.
Thank you. Thanks, Judy.
Sure.
We are officially 1 minute over time. So I unfortunately want to go ahead and thank our presenters, Judy, Carol, Diane, and Leslie. Really great session today. And I think it sounds like people learned a lot and have a lot now to think about ways to implement in the future. I do want to give a very quick plug as well for our next Lunch and Learn, which is happening on November 18th at noon. It's with Maya Payne Smart. She's the author of Reading for Our Lives, a literacy action plan from birth to 6. So she'll be talking about her book and would love to see all of you there. I will go ahead and put the link to register for that in the chat. If I can find my link again. There we go. And I will also include this in the notes that I send out after the session. Just want to say thank you again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.